Okay, so map legends are always a problem, and there's a lot of work that can be done to make a legend better, or in this case we want to make a legend for a proportional symbol or graduated symbol map. And if you do the typical map legend insert in ArcMap, and we'll just put it for nutso here, in national units level 0 classification. We'll go through this real quick. I'll specify a legend, and we're actually going to work with it off on the side of the map. So obviously you do this, and maybe we want to change this to national units. Don't call them countries, because some national units are actually part of other countries. And then we call this people per household, right? And so now we've got a decent legend here, but you'll notice that this is kind of ugly. And yeah, I could do some changes here to the classification scheme, so the whole numbers, but let's work with this as it is for the time being. And you'll see, this is stacked up, and yeah, I can look at the map and say, all right, well, that probably is this little category, and this one's probably the big category here. But there's not a lot of, it's kind of hard to compare them, and this legend takes up a lot of space. Now, if you remember from our mini lecture the other day, you can actually set up legends so that they stack up, so that these proportional symbols stack up on top of one another. And you should have an option, if you go into the legend properties, to actually set that sort of a thing up. So if we say OK and OK, you'll see now all of a sudden we have a proportional symbol legend that's fairly readable, and we can make it even a little bit bigger, and it becomes even more readable. Now, there's some issues here which you can change by selecting national units and going in here to the style, and then actually hitting properties again, and there's these tabs, and you would want to go to nested and maybe uncheck automatically sized text, and maybe only label the largest and smallest markers. We'll say OK here. We'll OK our way through and see how it looks. That didn't really change too much. You might actually come in here and change the leaders here. These are the lines that come off. So if we do that, we remove those, it might become a little bit easier. I don't know. There are a lot of options to kind of tease out what you want. You can actually align these symbols differently, like so. Although I would argue that that's sort of ugly and kind of obscures the symbol. But maybe for a circle, that would be your best bet. The other option here is you'll see the smallest shape. Let me get this back to a better legend real quick. You can see the smallest shape here is pretty hard to see, so we might actually go in and change this to some extent, so that the smallest one still shows up a little better. Now, that changes our map, so we've got to be careful. Another option, and I'm going to change the legend type here to one that's stacked up, so I've got a little bit more leeway. Another option, you can do the horizontal legend. There are a couple options for that in this list as well. But let's just go with the vertical legend like this and do a little bit of, I'll show you a little tip. Alright, so ignore the fact that the text is gone and just focus on, here's the information that we want to replicate through here, right? And you'll notice we can't really click in here and move anything, but we can do something called convert to graphics. Now, you have to be absolutely dead sure you want to do this, because if you start changing things over with this part of your map, with the data, you're going to have to redo all of your steps along the way. But if you've got the display so you want it, and you just want to make a good legend, you can actually come in here and select your automatically generated legend and make a lot of changes to it by converting that to graphics. And what that does, it doesn't really say it's doing anything. It changes it for something that dynamically updates as you change things in ArcMap to basically a picture. And in order to work with it, we can see if we click around, it looks like maybe there's a lot of different elements in here now. And we can get at those by ungrouping them. And so now we've got a whole bunch of symbols and the legend number attached to it. And we can move these around any way we want. But maybe we want to mess around a little bit with the proportional symbol map, with the stacked up symbols, for instance. And so we can, let's say that we want the biggest symbol to be a little bigger and exaggerate the legend a little bit, because most people don't actually say, all right, this is this size, maybe it's an inch across, oh, that one's an inch across too, right? They actually compare relative sizes rather than total size. So maybe we want to exaggerate the big sized one and then stack them up. So what we can do is ungroup these, and you'll notice they're no longer together now. I can move them independently. And maybe we make this one just a little bit bigger. And then we come here and we ungroup these, and I come and I stack this up. Maybe I want the things to be stacked up this way. Maybe I want them to be stacked up to the bottom or to the top. To the bottom here, we line them up. To the top or whatever. Remember, you can zoom in on these to get really precise in your placement, and whatever else. So maybe we want to make a legend where it's aligned like, not like that, but like this, perhaps. Wait for it to draw real quick, and then we gradually ungroup all of these and line up our legend. Now, there are a couple issues with this. Maybe we got our legend set up, and this is exactly how we want it. Maybe we've done a lot of manipulation with the sizes of these different shapes, and now maybe we want the text actually just to say 2.1 to 4.7, and then say people per household. And this is our legend, right, for the whole data layer. But if we want to position it, we can't just click on it and move it around. So you can actually click and drag, and let's see, supposedly you can click and drag, but it didn't select. If we try this tool here, no. Hold on a second. I'm going to pause it and see if I can figure this out. Okay, unfortunately, most of the tools that you can use to select things don't actually capture every item. So what you have to do is click on one, and click on hold shift and click on the other, and hold shift and click on the other, etc., and make it so you have all of these selected. And then you want to right click and hit group. And now these will move together as a group. You can move them around and nothing gets left behind. Now you want to delete anything you've left behind, and then perhaps you get into a situation, I'm going to ungroup this to illustrate, where you actually want something to be behind something else. You'll notice that some of these legend items are actually on top of the text. Well, there's something called order in this menu that I bring up by right-clicking, and you can move things forward or backwards through, if you envision like a stack of items. Like I just move that all the way to the back, and if I move it, just bring forward one stack item, I can keep doing that and eventually get it to the front. You'll see it kind of moves up through the stack as I do this, right? Or I can just say, bring all the way to the front, and it'll do it all the way. Just a heads up, you might run into a situation where certain things don't lay over each other the way that you might like them to. Now, once I've grouped this together and got it where I want it, maybe I'm making the most ridiculous map in the world, and here's my legend and title all in one. I've got a situation here where I'm like, oh, I want to go and change something. I want to actually change my classification scheme. I want it to be based on quantiles, and I click OK, and all of a sudden my layout changes. My number classes change. That doesn't matter because of the way I've made this legend, but you get the picture. Something changes. Maybe I change the size and make the biggest one actually 56 points in size. And my map has changed a lot, but my legend has become irrelevant. And in fact, if I insert a legend that's made automatically, I'm going to see, and I'll just click through this, I'm going to see that the sizes of the shapes here are very different than the size of the shapes here. So you got to be careful. It's just another reminder. You got to be careful that the legend you make by converting this legend to graphics and moving it around, okay, is not going to update automatically. So you want to do this as your last step in making any particular map. So that's how you make, those are some tips on making graduated or proportional symbol map legends. There are a ton of different ways, and obviously these change when you use symbols. So you might actually have to stick with a stacked up or horizontal legend like this if you start using proportional pictographic symbols. Anyway, good luck, and email me if you have any questions.